Hello. Welcome
Hello.
to the True Conscious Couple podcast. I am Tiffany Lancaster.
And I'm Brad Lancaster. We are a blended family. When we got together, I had 4 kids, Tiffany had 3, and we've had 1 together.
We're also a couple that runs a business together.
And so we talk about those things. We talk about our journey of self-discovery, of self-improvement.
We talk about the struggles of blended families. We talk about the struggles of business. And we talk about the struggles of doing inner work.
And we also talk about the joy, the peace, the love that comes along with all of that.
And what makes it all worthwhile.
Yeah, so come along for the ride.
Hope you enjoy.
Welcome. Next episode of True Conscious Couple. Hey, it's Brad.
And Tiffany.
And today is June 30th, 2023. It's been a little bit since we've recorded an episode. Man, we've been going through it.
Yeah, we have. We have almost completed our series with all of our kids. We have one we need to re-record, and that has been actually a bigger challenge than I anticipated getting that done. But
yeah, Rachel has moved to St. George, which is about 4 hours south of where we live, 4.5 hours south. And she is there. Her husband is starting medical school. Indy, he's right now finishing up basic training and officer basic training in the Army. But she is in St. George now.
yeah. And the name of today's podcast episode is, we're calling it The Beauty in the Struggle. As Brad and I were sitting around trying to figure out what we wanted to talk about today, as usual, we thought it would be best just to get vulnerable with everybody about what it is that we've been experiencing recently, and the tools that we've been really leaning into to kind of guide us through everything that we've been going through. And I think it just speaks to the reality that the work is never done. The work is never complete. That just when you think you've figured something out, the universe, God, whatever it is, brings something back to see if you've really healed that within you. So it's almost like the layers of an onion. There's just more and more ways for you to heal things in different aspects, I guess. So
How are you feeling? You ready for this?
yeah, I feel pretty good.
I just realized as you started talking about vulnerability, I was like, whoa, we're going to get vulnerable.
I saw you close your eyes. But I mean, understanding that, so we want to talk about, just the understanding that everything is working out for your benefit, and this will too. We've been going through a lot where it's been really a struggle for us to embrace that what we're going through right now is actually working out for our benefit, because it's so hard to see when you're actually going through it. So
Yeah.
I don't know how we talk about that without getting super vulnerable, right?
Well, I don't think we can. Well, and the question that I wrote down, or the subheadline, was how do we talk about and how do we find freedom and lasting happiness even when things aren't going exactly the way you wish they would?
Right.
And specifically for us, we've been dealing with, we've lost a lot of money on flips. We've lost a lot of money in our business. Our business has been struggling. We're in real estate, and
Well, we completely revamped every aspect of our business. We basically I decided that I wanted to be a business owner, not a business operator. And so we stepped into growing a team, really growing a team. And that's a completely different job from being a real estate agent. And one thing that Brad's been stepping into is being a sales manager for our team, as well as focusing a little bit more on wholesaling. For those of you who don't know what that means, basically we go out and find deals for other people to flip and basically get a finder's fee, which is different from being the guy who's flipping all the houses. So we've kind of taken on these new roles, and we've experienced adversity and struggle, um,
Resistance.
resistance within our relationship, because as we're navigating these new roles that we've taken on, we each have these expectations of each other. And man, it's been a struggle.
Yeah, it's been hard. It's been hard for us, you guys. And it's been hard for us financially. We've made less money. We've lost more money. Um, we've been in positions that we haven't been in a long time, like struggling, trying to figure out how we're going to pay bills, um, exhausting savings, watching equity in properties go away, and then dealing with we have properties that we own that are supposed to be paid for by tenants, and tenants not paying, which causes problems, multiples of those happening, and like just business struggle that we haven't. We've
Well,
I
the
mean,
other
business is
harsh-
never easy.
No.
Business is never easy, but sometimes it's not easy and you're doing well.
Yes.
And then sometimes it's not easy and you're not doing well.
Yeah. Well, and I just want to point out too, we haven't approached this from this victim mentality that like we're victims in this situation. Like one of the realizations that we've had is that we have kind of brushed over a lot of foundational pieces in business, like building that strong foundation of what a real business is. And the reason why I think it's important for us to talk about this is because I actually feel like this is really common in the real estate industry, in this space. We tend to treat it like just a job. And even in the flipping world, we create these jobs for ourselves where there's, a business consists of really solid systems. It consists of a solid culture. It consists of accountability. Running a real business is very different from just creating yourself a job to do.
Our one of our coaches defines a system as a repetitive way of doing something that brings about predictable results.
Yeah.
Right. And that's been a big piece that's been missing in our life.
Yeah. So basically we've recognized all of our shortcomings and said, okay, well, we've got to go back and we've got to rebuild our foundation. And it's been really important to me that we go back and do this. A lot of times we have these blind spots. We don't even see that. It's not like these shortcuts are intentional, that we're like intentionally cutting off our nose to spite our face,
right?
Or like consciously making these decisions. We're just going about business. And then when it's pointed out that like, oh, we've actually been trying to shortcut this thing.
Yeah.
And that's not super sustainable.
Well, and that's been a pattern for me in a lot of my life.
Yeah.
And the other pattern that comes along with it is struggle. When I consciously or unconsciously choose to take shortcuts in our business, in any part of my life, there are bound to be struggles.
Yeah.
So that's where we're at, you guys. So business struggles, which lead to financial struggles, which lead to relationship struggles, identity struggles, and also doubt. That's probably been one of the biggest things that I've been dealing with over the last several months, is just really doubting myself. Do I know what I'm doing? Am I full of shit? Or am I a fraud? Or do I really know how to run a business, generate revenue consistently?
Yeah.
And
it can be super simple to run back to what's comfortable, because whenever we decide to make a decision to grow and to do something that's really scary and really hard, the first time we come up against the resistance and the doubt, sometimes it can be easy to go run back to the familiar, comfortable, rather than just continuing to push into the uncomfortableness of growth. And really the transformational, the fire, the heat that causes that transformation, it's super uncomfortable. So sometimes we just want to run back to what's comfortable, but the power is leaning into it, actually, because the three biggest things that we're going to cover and talk about today is the growth that comes from the growth and healing that comes from the adversity that you're up against. How, how transformational that can be. And we're going to talk a little bit about how you can start to connect the dots, that even though you can't really connect the dots going forward because you don't really know what's going to happen, when you start to look at events that have happened in your past, you can start to see how those things actually happened to you. You had those experiences for a reason.
Yeah. Point. You can look back and say, oh, wow, that misstep led to this misstep, which led to this misstep, which led to this one, which led me to where I am now. And another way of thinking about it is failing forward, where, and it's the way I like to look at a progression on success. It's not win after win after win after win.
Right.
It's failure, and you keep going, and then you fail, and then you keep going, and then you fail.
And that's our last point that we have here, is this expectation that we have that we shouldn't struggle, that it shouldn't be difficult, that life we should just be able to float through everything and it should just be easy.
Well, and there's truth in that, right? Because Matt's taught us, one of our teachers has taught us that as we grow and as we reach towards enlightenment or self-actualization, we can actually get to a point where life kind of does become easy, but it's not an easy path to get there.
No. Well, and it's not necessarily that life becomes easy. I don't think per se. It's
you're right.
That your reaction to what's happening in your life
becomes less severe.
Yeah, you choose not to suffer because you choose not to react to the experience that you're having. You choose to accept it and not have this attachment to everything always being perfect.
That was a door. I think that was our own son. Could have been somebody else. Who knows? Yeah. So I love that, and it's something that gives me great peace to realize, hey, there's no guarantee that there's not going to be opposition. In fact, anytime you embark on a path of growth, you've basically guaranteed yourself opposition.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So this is where we share a little bit about how we got here. So you guys know our story, but and Tiff, if I'm going in the wrong direction, just tell me. Like, a big part of our story and a big part of where we're at right now is a result of us deciding to take self-healing, inner work, doing the inner work, to take it seriously and really dive into it. We found ourselves a couple of years ago, like the rest of the world, in the middle of a pandemic that was really struggling. Like, it was hard for us. And when you brought me to Matt Nash's Namaste Together challenge, that was in February of 2022. We were in a tough spot relationship wise.
Yeah.
You were going down a path of inner work, and I was going down a path of personal growth, but our paths weren't intersecting as much. Right.
Right.
And we had always said that, like, we were going to be honest with each other. And I wasn't even thinking about this, Tiff, before we got on here, but that was really such a pivotal moment for us and for me.
Right.
Because I had finally come to grips with this idea that I was okay talking about God or a higher power. I had moved through a phase of atheism where I didn't believe in anything.
Mm-hmm.
And we decided that we were going to work on this inner work together.
Right.
Right. And I don't know if I'm going in the right direction, Tiff, but
No, I think you definitely are going in the direction of basically our relationship. What we were finding ourselves at this crossroad where prior to that, I got my yoga teacher training in 2016, which for me was a really pivotal moment in my life because I realized that there's something much bigger than us. There were these teachings, these yoga teachings that allowed me to, it gave life meaning for me. Like everything, like it wasn't just that we're going through this life and we don't really know why. And, you know, it, it was this realization that we're really put here on this planet to ascend. There is a purpose for what we're trying to accomplish here. The soul is evolving here. And it laid out kind of a like a roadmap for how we can achieve, because ascension is ultimately, uh, you know, everlasting happiness. This idea that
Yeah. And do you mind if I just add something to that
go
about
for
what
it.
ascension is? It's in Christianity, it's called exaltation.
Yeah,
Like this idea of um, like just really becoming like God, becoming closer to God, becoming like your fullest best self, right?
right.
And that was really hard for me.
Yeah. And so I was going through all of these trainings and going to these retreats, and Brad would come with me to we would go to like yoga festivals and stuff like that. So he was being exposed to it.
I was okay with it as a form of exercise.
Yeah. And you were playing along with it at the festivals, but it was kind of like an eye roll for him the majority of the time when I would start
Well,
talking about
when
these
we were
things.
in movement, I was fine.
Yeah.
When we had to sit down and sit in
When it was
meditation,
about
or
inner work.
yeah, I wasn't okay.
Yeah, he would get triggered really quickly. So, as our paths started really just kind of going into different directions, because I just found so much peace and happiness in these teachings, and felt like I had found the answer, something that like actually made sense, And I would be super excited to share it with Brad, and he just really wasn't that interested. And so it was hard for a while. And it really kind of created some foundational like differences in beliefs, like our belief system, which can be problematic in a relationship. Like, let's be honest. So yeah, we did this Namaste Together challenge with Matt and Ash, the yoga couple. And we've talked about that before on this podcast, but it was 14 days it was basically a relationship challenge, how to um, really attack the core foundational issues within a relationship and how to have a great relationship. And basically they used these principles and these yoga principles and teachings to apply it to your relationship, and how to use a relationship. Basically pointed out the fact that a relationship is the fastest way to enlightenment, because you have this partner who's constantly mirroring your traumas, your shortcomings, your opportunities for growth, which does make it really hard. And then you add the layer of working together, and it's very difficult. So as we're going through that, Brad really, when you hear truth, you feel it. It's this deeper, you resonate with what it is that you're hearing. And we did this for 14 days straight. I think it was an hour and a half a day.
Yeah, I remember it culminated on Valentine's Day,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Started
Which
on
was really
February
beautiful.
1st and culminated on February 14th. And it was, an hour and a half or 2 hours a day practice
And it was amazing
and
because
instruction.
Brad was just, I remember every day that we were going through it, he was just completely like mesmerized and excited. Like I could see him just light up about this stuff and understand these truer aspects of himself and our relationship. And I could see that he began to understand the roadmap and how we could use it to create the reality in the world we were wanting to create. But again, just like anything that's worth it, it's never easy.
Mm,
It's always work.
mm,
And so when you decide to head down this path of self-healing and self-actualization, and you're agreeing to take on a lot of stuff. It's not an easy task.
no. But what I came to realize, and I think, like if to summarize what we really want to get across in this podcast is, first of all, like true happiness, lasting peace and joy, and true freedom are available, and but they aren't found in any external reality.
No.
Um, and although there is, with the caveat that you actually do have to take care of external realities,
Right.
like your bills and your household and your fitness and your this temple, this body, and then you can do the work necessary to find true freedom, lasting happiness.
Yes.
And um and we found that. And we found a path to that. I want to
We
be
found
clear
a
about that.
path
A
to
path to
that,
that.
and taking that on just like anything, because the topic of our podcast today is the beauty in the struggle, and this is ultimately why you take it on, because you know that at the end of this dark tunnel, something beautiful is awaiting you. This this beauty of the lesson that is in it, this life, this growth is on the other side of this tunnel, this dark tunnel that you're going through. And so learning to be excited about the struggle because you know what it has to offer at the end is really where the challenge lies. And it's super, super difficult. I'm feeling prompted to tell a story about like when I was taking Junior to golf camp this morning.
Okay.
He told me that he felt like I shouldn't have told him that you and Papa and Gabe were going golfing this morning because it just hurt his feelings. And I gave him these expectations that he was going to be able to go golfing with you guys, and then he wasn't able to go. And I apologized and told him, I certainly can understand why you would feel that way, but that was not my intention to make you feel that way. Of course not. But I explained this concept to him that this attachment to our expectations, like our attachment to how things should go or what outcome should be. Our suffering is directly tied to the expectations that we have.
To that attachment.
Yes.
Yeah.
And like you teach anything, I explained to him, like, this is a really hard concept to understand. And I am constantly having to remind myself that I can't be attached to these expectations because that is what causes suffering. And, kind of redirected him in that, like, there are plenty of opportunities to do the things that we really want to do.
Yeah.
But when we choose to be upset about this thing, like, we're creating this suffering within ourselves. And he understood it.
Yeah. Well, the inner work, as we talk about the inner work, and we're just finishing up you're finishing up your third yoga teacher training, I believe, and my first. And part of it is to be inner work facilitators. And if you haven't read the Inner Work book yet and you're listening to us, make sure to hop on Amazon and order The Inner Work by Matt Nash, Matt Micheletti, and what's Ash's last name? It's Matt Nash. So
Yeah.
it comes up as Matt Nash. Do yourself a favor and order it. But the idea of the inner work is that you have the ability to You have the ability to cure your own, do your own healing. And that was the first time it was laid out to me that I didn't need a therapist. I didn't need to talk to anybody about it anymore. I just needed to, the prescriptions were fairly predictable.
Yeah.
My reactions are
The protocols.
the protocols are fairly predictable. My reactions to triggers are fairly predictable based off of where I'm at emotionally and spiritually. And that's what the inner work really talks about. It's like this combination of emotional and spiritual trauma and how to grow past them.
It's basically a map.
Heal them.
Yeah.
How to heal them.
How to heal them. It's a map of whatever it is that you're struggling with. You literally can go and check the theme of consciousness that you're in based off of, like, basically, I want to say symptoms, right?
Your emotional and spiritual symptoms.
And then there's a protocol right there of how to, the idea is basically rewiring your brain to heal that so that you can move up to the next theme of consciousness. And the explanation is that a lot of spiritual bypassing happens because we try to direct someone in a lower theme of consciousness, and we expect them to ascend to all the way up to like peace and everlasting happiness when they're in anger or pride. And it's actually a process of healing your way up the ladder, basically.
Yeah, and one of the biggest pieces of this is the subject of today, like how do you find the beauty in a struggle? And like as you were just talking to me, I had this clear vision of exactly what we've been talking about, and it's amazing to me. So if you're still listening, thank you for coming along on this journey with me, because like I just had this cool breakthrough, and I don't know if I can put it into words. Can I try?
Sure.
And then we'll talk about some stories that have illuminated this for us, because the idea is, like we started off saying, if you were to look, the struggle you're in right now, it can either serve as a moment of suffering or a moment of enlightenment. It can be something that's teaching you or something that is making you hurt. It really becomes a choice, and it's a choice of perspective. And both of them, neither one of them is right or wrong. Like no judgment. They're or any. There's lots of other ways you can react as well. But the thing you're going through right now, in 2 years, like if you're going through a hard time right now, you're not alone. First of all, like all of us, all humans are going through something right now. All of us.
Yeah.
And so you're not alone in that. We're with you. Like, and we're okay saying we're struggling too. We've got struggles. And so it's okay. Like, you're not alone in this. I had a thought earlier last week, and it's based off of the Pareto principle, that 80% of all production is in any economy is generated by 20% of the workforce, basically. That's not exactly the Pareto principle, but it's the 80-20 rule. And I thought, no matter like whatever part of life that you're struggling with, it's likely that at least 80 to 90% of the population that's around you is probably struggling with it as well. Give or take. Like if it's finances, if you're struggling financially in our country, I think you're probably safe to say that about 80% of any community is struggling financially. If you're struggling with your mental wellness, probably about 80% of the people around you are struggling with it. So you're not alone.
And there's not a lot of people that are willing to talk about it. It's such a taboo. So people deal with so much shame around struggling in these areas. Like, it says something
Money,
about who you are.
Finances, relationship, mental health, physical health, as if a struggle is what defines you.
When the reality of that is that when we are presented with a struggle, we are presented with the opportunity to learn something at a much deeper level. We are presented with an opportunity to heal something within us that is much bigger than the topic at hand.
Yeah. And so the second part of that is, okay, you're not alone. And number two, what you said, this too shall pass. And not because you're just going to like brush it under the rug.
Which you can do.
You can.
When you do that,
you guarantee that it's going to come back.
It's just going to come back.
Yeah. So I think one of the more pivotal stories in our relationship and one of the most important stories in our life is what happened to your dad. Your story of what happened to your dad. It defined so much. And we've talked about that, but a quick reminder, I think, is important.
Yeah.
Do you want to do that? Do you want me to?
I mean, yeah, I have talked about it before on the podcast. I lost my dad when I was 7 years old in a fairly traumatic way. I was literally waiting for him to come and pick us up for the weekend because my mom and dad were divorced, and he didn't show up to pick us up, which wasn't like him. And the next morning I found out he was run over at a 7-Eleven while pumping gas.
By a drunk driver.
By a drunk driver. And I was 7 years old. And it was really, really traumatic for me. Just because my dad was kind of like, he was definitely my rock. He was like at a young age, I knew that he was the one I could really lean on. I knew even back then that there was something off about my mom. I love her, but mentally, she's not, she has mental issues and she's not available.
Well, and when you were growing up, she was an alcoholic and habitual drug user.
Right.
You never let me call her a drug addict. You don't feel she was a drug addict, or was it?
She used drugs. I mean, probably. It wasn't. I mean,
it was the
she
alcohol
was a user.
more than anything,
yeah.
Right?
I mean, she was an occasional drug user, but
she was in the bars a lot.
She wasn't available.
Right.
She wasn't stable. She wasn't. Right. There was no sense of security with her. Like all of that came from my dad, and
right.
So when he was taken from me, there was this. The trauma that I experienced was that like I wasn't safe. I was in a constant state of fight or flight. I had to take care of myself. I had to grow up quickly. I had to become, basically I had to fend for myself, not just myself, my mom and my sister at a super young age. And, but what it did is it instilled faith in me at a really young age, because I knew that I couldn't take it all on myself. I knew that it wasn't possible for me to carry that load and that burden on my own. So I knew that I had to have faith in something bigger than myself. And so back then, with what little understanding I had, I called on him. I called on my dad, who wasn't living in this world, and God too. But I felt a strong connection to him.
You felt like your dad was your conduit to God.
Exactly. And I had just witnessed so many situations where prayers were answered. So
as an aside, you guys, this was one of the like when Tiff and I met, I called myself an atheist. I identified as an atheist. Tiff was very loving and supportive of me, but whenever I would start mocking or mocking people who had a belief, she would often say, "Hey, I'm okay with you believing whatever you want, but I've seen too much to not believe that there is something out there. You can make fun of whatever you want, but making fun of this basic idea is there's a problem because you had a belief in it.
Yeah. And you guys, like, it would go to, like, we would have real discussions where I had to not get offended, where he would say, well, how do you know that those things weren't just in your head? And anyway, that's a whole other
Whole other
discussion.
discussion. Yeah.
But I had to stand strong in, like, this idea that faith is important, and I do believe it is.
Yeah, well, it is. It's critical. I want to point something else out also. Like, you just did something that is really key to finding the beauty in the struggle. You immediately said, okay, this terrible thing happened. I was left with this situation, and I knew that I needed to do something different. And so I learned this.
Yeah.
And so, like, without even being prompted, and you do this all the time, by the way, as you look back on things, on struggles that happened in the past, you, my beautiful wife, you say, but this is what I learned from it. This is what I gained from it. Like, you do that all the time. It was one of the things that, like, absolutely turned me on about you when we first met. That and your ass. But like, it was so it's so amazing how you just take whatever struggle, challenge, obstacle you've been given, identify it, say, this is the struggle I'm dealing with. This is how I felt, but this is what I've learned. This is what I gained from it. And, like, she just laid it out. We could stop right now, actually, and say, guys, just do that.
Well, I do want to point out that the map that we talked about in the inner workbook, because it really gave me the framework. So you would call that the wound of overwhelm.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was dealing with. Like, me saying I couldn't carry the weight. I couldn't bear the weight myself. I knew I had. So one of the protocols for overcoming overwhelm is having faith that you do not have to bear the burden yourself. And so embracing faith is a protocol to help heal the wound of overwhelm.
Yeah. And
just to give an example of how
right.
that.
And part of that as well is, so the realization that everything worked out.
Right.
God always provided a way.
Yes.
And so if God provided a way, if the universe, if creation provided a way, that will happen again. So we were talking about, like, the protocols, a simple approach to dealing with overwhelm, which is ultimately faith.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and that's what somebody might be going through right now. Another common struggle will be found in what we call the wound of rejection. And rejection happens a lot of times when relationships have ended, when you've been fired, when you've basically been told you're not good enough. And I experienced that in my divorce. I acknowledged, and I've acknowledged multiple times, that I was unfaithful, and I was so I was kicked out. I was kicked out of my religion, and and like, hit a rock bottom low. Totally, I felt totally like I deserved it, and for a long time struggled feeling like I could ever be worthy of love, that I could ever be okay to just be myself. And the prescription for that is something that I learned through this lesson of going through a really bad divorce. And that is to acknowledge that other people's judgments of me have really, it's not about me. That I'm always worthy of love, that I've always been enough, and I can make wrong choices.
Yeah.
And even when when I've made wrong choices, I'm still worthy of God's love. And I have to deal with the consequences of those choices. I learned how to how to accept the consequences of those choices. I went to jail.
Right.
I got divorced. I lost my professional standing. I lost my professional license. I dealt with consequences.
Right. The wound of rejection leads to shame. And what shame wants to do is continue to prove itself unlovable. So your subconscious does things that have real consequences.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it can lead to shame, or channeled another way, it can lead towards a righteous sense of, okay, I'm not going to accept that anymore for
Right.
myself. I'm not going to accept being dishonest. Judgment can drive you into shame, or it can drive you into this, into pride, which a righteous sense of pride that I'm just not going to tolerate that from myself anymore. And I would say for the most part, that's what the past 10 years of or 13 years of my life have been. I can sink into shame when I'm feeling judgment. And the one person who can drive me into judgment and expose that wound more than anybody else is you. Not out of, I've learned that's not out of like you're trying to hurt me. It's because you see me better than anybody else, including myself.
Well, it has to do also with what I was saying earlier, that like when you're when you're in a romantic relationship, and the reason why that is an expedited path to, healing of inner work is because you mirror back to each other all of those wounds and areas for healing.
Yeah. I'm just like amazed at, because this thing that we're going through right now, and this is what my epiphany that came more, and I know this isn't like we've heard this before, but this thing that we're going through right now is for our benefit.
Yeah.
And it's for us to learn. And so I don't need to resent it. It's my ego that wants to resent it. It's my ego that says I shouldn't be going through this. Shouldn't. Like, that's all it is.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so grateful that we get to go through and an approach of gratitude and like wonder, like, wow, wouldn't it be amazing if this just works out like everything else always has?
Right.
Like in this beautiful, powerful way. And I don't even know what that means. Like I don't know exactly what that looks like. But I believe that's what's going to happen. And I'm going to work my ass
Same.
off. I'm going to work like crazy to make sure that the best possible outcome is what happens. But
We're
this is
going to
the crazy
tackle
thing.
it together. Like
Yeah.
this is the thing that we've recently learned, is that we have to understand that you and I are on the same team and we're tackling this struggle as a team.
Right.
Like this is our challenge to overcome, and our job is to support each other through it, to help lift each other up, to point out what the reward is, what the light is at the end of the tunnel.
And it's not me versus you, obviously. It's not even me versus the world. It's you and I. Against nothing.
Healing this opportunity that's come up for us to heal, and navigating it and becoming better for it.
Yeah.
That really is beautiful.
Yeah. So that was my divorce. That was what I learned from it. And it was terrible. Like it was a terrible, hard, painful divorce.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think a lot of people know a lot of our struggles, and you going to jail. So we don't need to go through that. And then I had a not so great divorce, which we've talked about plenty of times on this podcast. But, we've, because of this expectation.
I think the jail and your divorce are worth mentioning a little bit. Like that, me going to jail 8 months apart, 242 days away from each other, and me in the worst situation, we routinely call like our catalyst, the thing that brought us together.
Yeah.
And
well, we knew that was going to be a really hard thing. And so we intentionally like romanticized that journey.
We
and
did.
said, like, we're going to go on this thing and we're going to do it the best that anyone's ever done it. We're
Yeah.
going to kill this and we're going to
Yeah.
come out on top. And we did that.
And
We did do that.
and I had inmates, fellow inmates. I even had correctional officers that were like rooting for us.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if you remember when you picked me up,
Yeah.
that CO that was out at the garden, like he was giving me a fist pump, like, yeah, you made it. Like it was, because we gained, and anybody can do this. Like you can gain a fan club. The world will conspire, the universe will conspire in your favor when you let them know what you're overcoming,
Right.
when you're just open about it.
Yeah.
Instead of like keeping it to yourself and acting like it's you versus the world.
Yeah.
Of course, there's going to be haters. Of course, there's going to be people that are going to doubt you. Of course, there's going to be people that are going to judge you. They're going to do that whether you share your story or not. They're going to do that whether you're vulnerable or not. But if you have the courage to say, this is what I'm dealing with, and this is how I'm overcoming it, and this is how I'm falling short, and this is how I'm doing okay today, the people that are there for you, they're going to be there for you, and they're going to cheer for you. And we felt that, and we haven't been doing that, and we're doing that now.
Right.
We're doing that right now.
Yeah.
Saying we need everybody's help.
Yeah.
And we want to help you too, by the way. If you're out there and you're struggling, like, let us know.
Yeah.
We want to cheer for you. We want to support you.
Absolutely.
None of us are in this alone.
Yeah.
We're all connected. We all came, whatever God it is, we all came from the same one. Whatever this earth is, we all go to the same spot.
Right. We are all in this together.
Yeah.
And some people's lives and journeys may look easier than yours, but at the end of the day, comparing your journey to someone else's is like it's so irrelevant.
Man.
Because their lessons, their karma, their path is not the same as yours. So there is no comparison. There's nothing to compare.
Making me feel like it's reminding me that person that I got mad at this morning, that I felt like righteous indignation about getting mad at them.
Mm-hmm.
They deserve better.
Yeah. Yeah.
They deserve love and forgiveness too.
That's the beauty, right?
Yeah, boy, that'll take some. Because I might see that person again soon.
Well, you might need to go intentionally see that person again soon.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and start wrapping this one up.
Yeah, let's do that. Well, here's one tool, guys. Because part of the process that Tiff and I are constantly working on is a process of awareness. Mm-hmm. And because an awareness gives us the opportunity, like awareness is always the first step. What is it that you're feeling? What is it that you're dealing with? And Tiff developed a beautiful tool to help with awareness. And it's called the True Life Balance Journal. It's a 90-day step-by-step process to every day look at how you're doing, like take an honest assessment, get into gratitude, set your priorities, set your desired outcomes, weekly assess, and then work off of a 90-day strategic plan, emotionally, spiritually, physically, relationship, connection to God, everything, right? So
basically just works off the power of intention, guide you through setting an intention through every area of your life and visualizing, basically creating a visualization practice every morning to align with the life you want to live. Everything is energy. Everything is a frequency. And our thoughts, our words, our actions are all just frequency. And so It's learning that we can begin to program our life, not necessarily that we have much control over outside influences, but it's how we go through those experiences and those struggles that are presented to us. So,
Are you okay if we offer a gift?
Yeah.
Or a journal?
Sure.
So this is what I would like to do. If anybody's listened to this point and you're still here with us and you think maybe there's something to this journal of how you could start to gain an awareness, how you could start to set an intention, wherever you're listening, just message us on Instagram on True Conscious Couple, or on our Facebook, True Conscious Couple Facebook. Message us, journal. Just message us. We'll reach out to you. We'll get you a link so you can get a free copy of the journal. We'll just ask you to cover the shipping and handling with Amazon, whatever that is, like
Perfect.
$1.99 or something like that. But message us and we'll get you a free copy of the journal. Another key part of the journal is and am I going too fast to talk about the meditation?
No, go for it.
Okay. So the other key part is a really beautiful meditation that my wife leads that you just need to go and experience. And I was just reminded I need to go experience it more often.
Yeah.
And it's we've been doing another morning meditation that's been really beautiful too. But
it's basically a meditation where you go and revisit. It's not just inner child, but different versions of you throughout your life, and go and connect with those versions of yourself. And it's just a really beautiful healing meditation.
Yeah. So all right, guys. Look, to wrap this up, if you find yourself in a struggle right now, embrace it. This is exactly where you need to be. This is exactly what you're supposed to be doing. And ask yourself just the simple question: what if everything works out exactly the way it's supposed to?
Yeah. What if this is actually happening for me, not to me?
Wouldn't it be cool if everything worked out better than I even imagined? Like, ask yourself those kind of questions and just see how the struggle changes from suffering to
More
growth.
of a challenge.
Yeah, more of a challenge.
Like a challenge, and like if you can approach it from like a place of excitement, like I'm gonna conquer this.
Man,
I can take this challenge.
I needed this today.
It's typically how it goes, right?
Yeah, and guys, feel free to reach out. Like, we're going through it ourselves, and I'm excited to see what comes from this. I'm excited to see what happens as I shift this perspective from why is this happening to me to what if everything were to work out exactly or even better than I can imagine.
Yeah.
How is this happening for me? And asking those questions.
I just want to reiterate what Brad said about if you are struggling with something and you need someone to talk to, reach out to us on any of the socials. If you have our phone numbers, call us, text us. We're here. We'd love to connect and offer you some guidance.
Yeah. Make sure to follow us on all the socials if you don't already. YouTube, you might be watching this on YouTube if you're watching it or listening to this on one of the Spotify's or Apple or whatever podcasts. Make sure to go follow us on True Conscious Couple on Instagram. Follow Tiffany at Tiff Lancaster and me at the Brad Lancaster on Instagram. Stay in touch. We love talking about these things. We do real estate. That's the business. We love talking about consciousness, about the inner work, and about these processes of really embracing the beauty in the struggle.
Yeah. And as always, if you have real estate questions, feel free to reach out with those too. We're always happy to help. If you find yourself with a real estate need, regardless of what it is, That's what we do.
Yeah, and you're going to get a conscious answer, not just some commission breath answer.
Yep. All right, guys.
Thank you so much.
Have a great day.
This podcast is brought to you by the True Agency Real Estate Team. If you are looking to buy, sell, or especially right now, invest, by the way, you should be investing in real estate right now, contact us. Or if you're a real estate agent that is committed to personal growth, we need to talk. We are looking to grow our real estate team. So if you're looking to buy, sell, or invest, or you're a real estate agent and you need growth, contact us. Also brought to you by True Studios. If you are in Tooele County or nearby, we record, edit, produce, distribute all parts of your podcast. We give you the space, the time, the expertise so that you can have your own podcast. All you have to do is show up, be there, and then we handle everything else. So if you've always wanted to have a podcast, don't know how to start, don't know how to do it, get a hold of us. Reach out. You can reach out to us at True Studios or True Conscious Couple or True Agency Team. Reach out to me, reach out to Tiffany, reach out to Trenton. All of us are available. We would love to help you get that out. Thank you so much.